With the rise of the social media, we have an entire segment of the influencers who brag about how they manage to find a way to make enough money to retire in their 20s or 30s. Now, all they do is post pictures of their mansions, Lamborghinis, or the private jets until someone exposes them that they have been renting out their mansions or the luxury cars or the private jet. Yes, I'm talking about you, Dan. Definitely, there are someone who managed to make the millions by building detached startups while still being in college, but that's an exception, especially if you consider that 9 out of the 10 startups fails. I'm not trying to discourage anyone, feel free to give it a try, but the question that I want to focus you in this video is, can your average guy retire early? It is possible for someone who works a 9 to 5 retire within a span or the 10 or 15 years. If you are your 20s, can you retire by your 30s without starting the business or winning a lottery? The answer is yes. There's entire movements on the internet called FIRE, Financial Independence Retire Early Movement. They claim that if you are frugally throughout your 20s and invest the vast majority of your income, so you can retire by your 30s and never have work again. Your investments will cover all of your bills, so you can finally quit your job and start your journey to traveling around the globe in 80 days. You may not be able to afford the private jet or the live $50 million mansions, but not unless you can maintain your normal standards of the living without working another day in your life. In this video, we are going to find out how much money do you need to save the retire by your 30s. How should you invest your money to be able to do that? And what is the rule of 4%? Why rich people will always be rich? If you take a look at what exactly makes rich people rich, is that you will find out that they have the capital that keeps earning them money even if they do nothing. Imagine having the $1 billion in the savings account that pays you 3% interest annually. That is $30 million a year. That is enough to provide you with a super luxury life, which means you can spend $30 million every single year and your wealth won't decrease even by the single penny. And that's what separates rich people from the rest. Most people can't break the cycle of the poverty or the middle class trap because they make just enough to live comfortably. Even if they end up making more, they move to the bigger houses, get the better car, and level up their standards of living. There is nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, the ultimate goal of the money is to improve the quality of your life, especially since you will be able to pass your house to your child and make his life a lot easier. If he is smart enough, he will repeat your footstep and at least acquire another houses throughout his life and then pass two properties to his child. After repeating this process over and over, after the few generations, your grandchild maybe be left with the multiple properties or at least some wealth to provide him with the comfort of financial freedom. But that looks the dumb strategy to most people. Why would you work so hard and prevent yourself from all these pleasures life has to offer so that your grandkids would live the better life? It's their problem. They will figure it out. So here's the better idea. The FIRE movement claims that you don't have to work your entire life to build wealth. All you have to do is to dedicate 5, 10, or 15 years of your life to building wealth, and that's it. By living extremely frugally and saving over 80 to 90% of your income, you save enough capital that you can invest and life off from the invests that your capital will be generated. That was impossible a few generations ago, but we are lucky to be young in 2020. The world has developed to the point where anyone who is born at least lives in the first world country has the opportunity to break the cycle of the poverty and become financially free within the span of the decade. As 2018, the average household income in the winter of the $63,000. Hypothetically, since the average return of the index funds that invest in the S&P 500, for example, is 10% by the saving $630,000 and investing in the such fund, every year you will be able to withdraw $63,000 and your initial investments to $630,000 will still be there. $630,000 is, of course, a lot of the money, but nonetheless possible for most people. Surgeons, doctors, or engineers easily make the $100 a year after taxes by saving just a little over half of their incomes for 5 or 6 years. They can save that much money. Sounds like the good plan, right? Well, not everything is sunshine and rainbows. The inflation rates in the US is around 2 to 3%, which means if you don't want the real value of your investments to decrease every year by 2 to 3%, you should not withdraw more than 7% of your investments. On the top of it, if you want your investings to grow by at least a small margin, like the 2%, you are left with just 5%. If you also deduct another percentage for the market fluctuations, you are left with just 4%. And that's what the rule of the 4% is. So if you would if you want to be able to withdraw $63,000 and to be confident that inflations won't wipe your wealth over time, you have to invest $1.5 million in the index funds like the S&P 500. That might look like the big sum of the money, but nonetheless, it's realistic. With the high-paying jobs and the frugal life, it's possible to achieve that in the give it and take 10 years. That's important not to hire is you can achieve that by having the regular job, no offenses, but if you are earning enough just to cover your basic needs, there is no way you can save that much money. So the idea is you should work on getting the high paying job, but still within with a student and invest over 80% of your income, and in 5 to 10 years you will be able to retire or for good. What's also important is know that is kind of the retirement do you want? Do you want to drive the Ferrari and spend over $200,000 a year? Then you will have to work a lot more and invest $2, $3, or $5 million so that you can confidently spend $2,000. But if you are fine with spending $50,000 a year, you can retire a lot faster. It all comes down to your spending habits. But don't start investing unless you first take care of your debts, especially high interest rate debts. It doesn't make sense to get 10% rate return when you have the 20% credit card debts. But this rule doesn't apply to your mortgage. With the mortgage, you are the building in quantity at least, so focus first on the getting right of your high interest debts and then move towards savings. Regardless of how brilliant this plan looks like, it has its problems. That's what is the point of the sacrificing the best years of your life just to be able to retire earlier, especially your 20s. There are the years when you want to party, hang out, and experience the new things. Besides, I don't think that most people want to retire at 30 and literally do nothing after that. Work isn't just about earning money, but it gives you meaning and self-fulfillment, especially when you love your job. So here's the slightly better idea. Indeed of the denying yourself even with the basic pleasures, don't strive to retire at 30 or 35, but rather focus on the building the investment portfolio that can last cover your basic needs, such as the shelter and food. Instead of the savings over 80% of your income, say 30 or 40. In 10 to 15 years, you might not be able to complete retire, but if you want to quit your jobs to take a break, experience some news, you can easily afford that. By the withdrawing 4% of your investment portfolio, you can easily pay the rent and put some food on the table. And no matter how glamorous the idea of the financial freedoms looks like, don't sacrifice your house for it, because financial freedoms means nothing if you end up losing your house in the process. Don't eat garbage, for example, just save an extra dollar. When you reach your point where you are finally financially free, where you don't have to accept the certain job for the sole purpose of how much does it pays, you start making the slightly different decisions. Now, since we are at the end of the video, pull out a notebook and the pen and answer these basic questions. How much money do I need to maintain my standard of the living? How much do I need to invest so that I can withdraw 4% every year to maintain my standards of living without touching the principal? And how much can I save every month? Then you will find out how many years you have to save to be financially free. And finally, do you want 2 free stocks from the bull to start investments? Of course you want. So use the links in the descriptions and get your 2 free stocks. And now it's time to give you this video the thumbs up it deserves. And if you want to subscribe and turn on notifications, what are you waiting for? Thanks for watching, and until next time.